Should be fun today. This is episode number 10. So we're, just a couple of nerds who love playing D&D, decided to make a podcast, just kind of throw something out there on the internet, I suppose. Got a small little community who I feel like enjoys it, and anybody else who wants to find
Right.
us, great. Good to see you, whether you're here on Twitch or YouTube, Spotify, whatever, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to just go ahead and follow us along, you can grab a link to the Discord, follow us on Twitch, all that fun stuff. As we just try and entertain, have some fun on the side. Um, every 5 episodes here, we're going to be doing ranking videos. So this is episode 10, which means, hey, it's another ranking video. Last time we did this, we did a ranking of our favorite classes to play in D&D 5e. This time, kind of asked the community for some ideas and ended up going with our favorite moments from D&D. So it's a little bit different. It's not mechanics oriented or anything like that. It's just we're just going to be chatting about scenarios that we've found ourselves in or found our players in. As I've got my top 5 here. I'm looking at them. It's sandwiched. I've got 2 that actually happened to me as a player, and the 3 in the middle are I was a DM and what my players did. So it should be fun. I don't know what Steve's list is going to be. He normally flies by the seat of his pants. So we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see what happens on,
I
that
mean,
side there.
I think people know us by now who the most organized is. That's you.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
And then,
that's saying a lot because I'm not the most organized person in the world, as my wife can
yeah,
attest
but
to.
I am ADD
Right.
as hell. So,
But yeah, it should be fun. We're just gonna go bounce back and forth, tell some stories, and kind of laugh at it. Maybe have some honorable mentions before we get to number 1 there. Normally we would be taking questions in the second half, but I think most of the time on these ranking ones, we decided we'll pretty much just kind of go the whole episode doing that, and then
right.
next week we'll have questions again. So, yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll go ahead and jump on into our lists, if that sounds good.
I think I have one. This is when I first started DMing too. Because I think when you first start, you don't always really know what to expect, right? I'm gonna throw a shout out to Trevor because I think he was asking me to describe something. He wanted to know how big his dingling was. And of course,
This is one of your favorite moments. Okay.
because it's hilarious, because it just goes by like it's just hilarious, okay? And he was in character the entire time, and he goes, well, how big is it? I'm like, all right, roll a d20. He rolls a natural 20, and therefore the story of Thalai the Great is the natural 20. But there was conditions to that. There was a flaw, so that was fun.
Oh
If he
yeah, that's
rolled
true.
evens or odds, evens, he didn't do anything, but odds, he was always compelled to whip it out and tallywhacker it all over the place.
This was
And it
like
just
every time he killed a foe or something like
every
that,
time
right?
he
Yeah.
killed a foe, yeah, at the end of the battle, yeah. So like it's not anything majestic, but you said my favorite moments. Like what entertained me?
Right.
Like what made me laugh?
I mean, that's fair.
Every time I had made him do it, it just brought a giggle to me. And we all just sat around our computers and just laughed and just made fun of him and whatever, because to me those are my favorite moments, is when we're laughing and we're having a good time. I've got story moments too, I get it, but
No, I mean,
I like those yucks.
that's fair. I understand that, especially coming from you. It was also fun when the NPC Finn decided to
Yeah.
join in.
Right. And that's why I made that NPC for you.
Yeah.
I didn't give him his sexuality. I just assumed he was straight. You go, no, he thinks that's hot. He's gay. I'm like,
He's
okay,
apparently,
that's
yeah, I
fine.
decided he was apparently really into Thal, so.
Yeah, he's really into that yonkin hot dog. So it's fine. See, I mean, it's like, I think everybody always thinks like, oh, it's the serious moments. Sometimes for me as a person, I mean, sounds strange saying it's the little things after mentioning a huge dong, but it really, to me, it's the little things that stick out. Because wow, okay, because it makes mountains. Because from those moments, we built together this really cool story. A lot of moments where there was a lot of battles, a lot of like, which led to role playing a wedding.
Yeah.
It started with that moment, and it just builds on. So that's
Yeah,
one
and
of
I mean,
mine. So
I think, yeah, it's whatever's the most entertaining, whatever you found the most fun, whatever you like enjoyed. Like, I think that's totally fair. That's, I mean, I think that's hilarious that is gonna be one of your
I have
five
never
here.
forgotten it.
But yeah, I mean,
But I've never
that's
forgotten
totally
it.
fair,
Yeah,
right? Like, out of everything that happened in that campaign, that's kind of one of the most iconic,
one
I
of them.
guess, things.
I wouldn't go that
So,
far. I
but
wouldn't go iconic. I would go memorable for me
yeah,
because
yeah,
it
yeah,
made me laugh. And as a new DM, and I think that was what session one.
probably, yeah.
It made me less nervous
Well,
because
that
we're just sitting there laughing.
that first session established a lot of things that have just kind of like become like canon lore
Yeah,
for your characters and
right.
whatnot too. That session right there, like I'm pretty sure you had no intention of Vac being a pothead, but
No,
but
none,
like
none at all.
but Blast is like, I want to look for weed, and you're like,
Yeah,
okay,
okay,
and then like, yes, not Gandalf if he's got any weed or whatever, and you
right.
like it
There
all
were
just
so
kind of
many things that
happened.
you can't you can't plan for, and it just like, all right, players really
Yeah,
can do anything they want, so I have to learn to adapt.
yeah.
So yeah, man, that was the start of it. That those kinds of things right there just kind of set a precedence for me to. It also taught me something too. You can plan as much as you want. You can't predict what players are going to do,
Very
and
true.
that taught me I need to react.
And
So
I think it's like yeah, like you were saying, some like really big story moments can certainly be super impactful and super memorable and whatnot. But it's a lot of times some of the just other stuff like what I'm kind of thinking of is like the first Critical Role campaign. They there was this episode. It was actually at during one of their live shows, right near the end of the campaign. It was like, who knows? Maybe they could end the campaign this session. And rather than like talking about and confronting like the big bad and whatnot, Liam's character decides to try and use a love potion on Scanlan, and that's like ridiculous. And Matt Mercer, basically the DM, just kind of sits there and lets them do whatever the heck it is, like whatever
right,
crazy
just
thing they
sit
were doing.
back,
Like, and it's
let it
yeah,
go.
it's something that like yeah, that's not a big moment or anything, but that is crazy memorable from that campaign because it was like, this is hilarious and what the hell is
Hmm.
happening. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think the size of Thal's dong kind of is in line with that sort of thing where it's like,
Maybe
yeah,
I should
there's other
preface it
things
the
going on,
story
but
of.
like it
Yeah.
was yeah. That's fair.
I should preface it. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, so my number five is actually from that same campaign, and this is me as a player. I was playing Blast's character, actually, a a dwarf sorcerer. Um, this so again, we're all fairly new to this, whether it's playing again, like I know Steve had played like third edition, I think it was
Many years
way back in the
ago.
day. And I had some 5e under my belt now. I had DM'd a few times, I had played for about a half a year or so, but still fairly new to it. And then some of our other players, maybe they had played games here and there a little bit, but everyone was pretty new. And we're a few sessions into Steve's first campaign that he runs online. We're playing in this Midgardian campaign where it's like epic Norse mythology and whatnot. My main character is a cleric of Thor, who's kind of like on a quest to find Mjolnir the hammer. And we get to this cave, and this water dragon who's like a demigod guarding Mjolnir and Yarnborn, that epic axe and the epic hammer and whatnot. And there's this big ass battle, and Steve had spent a long time just taking a dragon and changing its stats up some and homebrewing it into a water dragon and making it have this massive, like, instead of like a electricity breath or whatever, where it was a water cannon like a Pokemon has or whatever, and was just doing massive damage. And like on the second round, I take a look at the sorcerer's spell sheet, and I turn over to the dragon and I tell him that I suggest that he just goes and swims on off. And I reiterate that we were all pretty new in this process, and Steve had decided, or had not quite learned, how legendary resistances worked. To be honest, it was early enough in the campaign to where maybe he wouldn't have had it have legendary resistances anyway, but it worked. As
Right.
we're already gearing up for this epic fight, and just like a round in, the big bad is like, for some reason I just want to swim right off. And yeah, it took a round, maybe two, and then we just had epic loot. It was fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
So I think
I remember laughing at that.
Yeah.
It's like I looked at the sheet and I'm like, I was looking for anything. I'm like, fuck.
How can I get around the spell? How can he worded
There was
it
no
good?
way around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh god damn it! I spent a lot of time on that encounter too.
Yeah, and I mean,
like the rest of the encounters were like great. They were really solid, and then you guys get there, and then Blast is like, "I suggest you fuck off." He's like, "You know what? I think that's a really good idea. I'm going to fuck off."
I think,
like, right.
like looking back at it, I think suggestion is concentration for either 1 or 10 minutes. I can't remember now. So like technically,
hours.
I guess he could have turned around and come back. Was it? Is it 8 hours?
It's 8 hours. Look it up.
Right.
8 fucking hours of concentration.
So either way, it just kind of completely destroyed that. We got this epic gear and just left. We ended up fighting that creature again later on in the campaign, and guess what? It had legendary resistances.
Right.
But
you learn, right?
Yeah.
That's
I think that's one of my favorite moments as a player, because I hadn't played any real spellcasters before. So my first character that I ever made was a fighter, and then after that I made a rogue, and then the next character that I really played was in this campaign, and he started out as a cleric, and he was split level cleric and fighter. So he was a magic user, but he was still really only like a half caster, because he kept taking fighter levels also, which kind of weakened the cleric side. And he was a Tempest cleric anyway, so he was really kind of like a little bit of support in AoE, but mostly still focused on damage. And then when I was like able to kind of play Blast's character there some, because he just couldn't show up to a lot of sessions. Not his fault. I was given access to a full-on caster, which just kind of like blasts open the doors of creativity, and it was the first time that I really like got to open up the spells and see what all they can do and get creative with them. And I think that was a lot of fun. I mean, just playing that character in general, I think that's why I have such an affinity for sorcerers too, because like, it was just a lot of fun, especially when we were up at like 16th level near the end of the campaign, and I would, cast a spell and like use some points to give disadvantage, and then use some points to quicken another spell or something like that. And I had all these things worked out of like, okay, I know he's got legendary resistances, so I'm gonna try and bait him with like some charm spells or whatever, and then once those are used up, once he uses up those, I'm hitting him with a polymorph, and I'm gonna go ahead and quicken that or something like that. And it's it was a lot of fun, kind of just, I don't know, it's the first time I really got to experience what a caster can really do, so I think that just kind of stuck with me. So that's number 5 for me.
Well, I'll give you a serious one then. I'll give you a more serious one. Since my funny one caught you off guard, I'll give you a serious one. My first character in your online game died twice.
Yeah.
And that was tough, because it taught me how to, like, it's not easy dealing with character death, because I was like, I had this cool idea for this Kensai monk, and it's just unfortunate things happen, just it is what it is. And I played my character, and I to this day I do not regret playing that character how I played it, because at the end, when he wasn't going to stick around anyway. We'd already talked about that, because he died once. He was basically back to fulfill a quest to get the bad guy, his rival. And when it came to the point of the tree, and it basically these creatures were trying to brand us. Everybody else accepted it, but Vale would not. It's not in his nature. So they killed him. And I remember telling Grady's character, I said, no matter what, just take the brand. But this goes against every part of my being, and I died. And I think maybe I should preface this as like the moment was actually Grady's, but for me it was memorable because he got my character's sword. I made a cleric character just because I didn't know what to do. We thought it'd be cool to try the forge cleric. Wasn't a fan, but needless to say, it is what it is. We go through the part of the campaign and we finally get to kill the bad guy. And Grady's character gets the last hit. Not proficient with a long sword at all, but just this cool story moment that John sets up for Grady, that Vale is helping Grady's character take this sword and just whopping off the guy's head. To me, that was super cool because it was showing flexibility in a story moment instead of just being rules as written to help a character avenge his friend. It gave that character the closure that I felt like it truly needed. And that was as a player watching one of my friends get that moment was super cool.
Yeah, I like that because like like you said, Veil of Shadows he didn't get his vengeance and whatnot. Like to give a little bit more on the background, like the Veil of Shadows, his like I think like his village was raised or something like that by this bad dude who ended up thrown in with this evil god, and that's who the party was hunting down. And they came to this tree that was marked by that god of like undeath. And the party essentially had no choice. They were stuck, frozen in place, and had to either kneel and accept the brand of this evil god, or it was kind of like Harry Potter Dementors coming out and sucking the life out of people. So everyone else did except for Vale, who literally like had his life sucked out. And then when they got to the big bad, who was kind of Vale's sworn enemy, he still got that reconciliation at the end or whatever. That's cool. I liked that. I thought that was a fun story. That's one of the better times that I've kind of been able to work in characters' backstory and whatnot. I feel like,
and
I always really do a great job of that.
I enjoyed it. It was very memorable for me, and I think in just watching Grady's face whenever he got to do that, I think that's what I liked most of all because he was just so into it, and I was like, "That's dope."
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Interaction.
That ended up being like two characters who really like got to shine there. One who had already died, but that is really cool too, because like normally when a character dies, that's kind of like the end of their story, but it kind of showed that his story continued on through the sword and everything too, which I think is really cool. Character death isn't even necessarily the end of the character's journey.
Exactly.
I'll go ahead with my number 4 here. My number 4 moment. So again, these next 3 are all going to be when I was a DM, things that my players did. Sadly, more than one of them involves this guy over here on the other side of the screen. So
here we go.
So this one right here is gonna be it's actually another more serious kind of epic badass moment involving Dash Wilder 1.0. Hey Steve, I think you fixed it.
Wait.
I don't know, for some reason your mic popped, but now it's fixed.
Oh, my bad. I think I might have hit the cord on accident.
Yeah. But you're okay now. So for some reason, so the party was underground in the Underdark. They were heading eventually to what unbeknownst to them, they were going to kill a Kraken. What? No, kill Crevathan the Beholder. That's what I'm trying to say. But on their way there, they kind of, it's the Underdark, and the Beholder was pretty deep in there, so they had all sorts of little side encounters here and there. They met some Durgar, ended up taking care of them. They met some other things, ended up taking care of them. Met a couple of Minotaurs, ended up taking care of them. But interesting, with the Minotaurs, the party was in a large chamber in the Underdark. Ended up seeing a couple of minotaurs come out from a hidden door that was inside of a very visible archway. Um, they come out of that door, uh, sacrifice somebody on a stone altar. I can't remember if the party actually attacked those minotaurs or not, um, but whether they attacked him or not, I can't remember. But the party ended up, like, they saw the minotaurs come through that door. The door ended up closing up, and the party decided they were going to take a long rest right outside of that archway in this open cavern that clearly some minotaurs behind this archway were using for whatever. Did no scouting or anything, had no idea how many minotaurs were around. They had cleared out a previous chamber about a few miles further back that they could have retreated to and taken a long rest there. Nope, decided to take a long rest right outside of this archway that was clearly a at least somewhat trafficked area for an unknown amount of minotaurs.
I was against this, by the way.
They were also like level 5, I think, at this point, which a couple of minotaurs for level 5, not a big deal, but you had no idea how many there were. So they decided to go ahead and take a long rest, but it's okay because Dash Wilder has the spell Tiny Hut, Leomund's Tiny Hut. So it was like, not a problem. We'll be fine. We're going to cast this Tiny Hut. The spell says nothing can get in it, so whatever, man. I'm like, okay, that's what you want to do. Not a problem. The party decides to do so. A couple hours later, the doors open again, and the Minotaur comes out ready for the sacrifice, sees this tiny hut there, kind of goes back, talks to his people, and then when the party wakes up, they're surrounded by, I think there were 20 Minotaur in this village. So they woke up entirely surrounded by the entire Minotaur village down here in the Underdark. Yeah, so really with no plan, no idea how to deal with this. Party's kind of talking about like, well, what do we do? Like, we're screwed. Everyone's like, well, we're clearly gonna die. I mean, I want to reiterate, there's no way they could have fought this. And I was maybe being a little bit unfair as a DM, but at the same time, they brought it on themselves. So Dash decides, I got this. He goes ahead and casts Fly on himself, which, in hindsight, as soon as he leaves the hut should have gone. But yeah. I didn't know that, and
I didn't either.
It doesn't matter because it was super cool and it worked. So he casts Fly on himself, flies up past the hut to the roof of this Underdark cavern. It's about, I think it was like 100 feet up or something like that. Places himself right among all the stalagmites and whatnot, or tights? Yeah, stalactites are the ones hanging from the ceiling.
Is ceiling.
And uses every single spell slot he has to, one after another, cast Shatter on the ceiling there, as just like trying to recreate as much of a cave-in as possible, as rocks just begin to fall from the ceiling, squishing all these minotaurs. Dash falls all the way down to the ground. Luckily, doesn't insta-die. He just drops to 0 hit points. The minotaurs attack. Everyone starts rolling initiative. The party starts to turn and run through like that archway doorway there that they had. One of them is able to pick up Dash and get his unconscious corpse out of the out of the fray as these Minotaur are trying to chop down the party. And then the party's ranger actually cast Spike Growth after the party kind of like got through to this funnel, I guess, so that the Minotaurs had to run through the spike growth in order to get to the party. It killed all the Minotaurs. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was super epic, and like I think even if I would have known the rule, I would have let it slide, because like it's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, the party got themselves into this, but they came out with a really creative, really fun way to get themselves out of it, and I don't ever want to just kill everyone. It's kind of that whole idea that we've talked about recently, at least in our games and whatnot, about like multiple fail states, right? The party decided to
Right.
take a long camp right outside the Minotaurs. Yeah, that's a fail. That's a terrible idea, but they found a way out of it, and I think that was awesome. I think that was really cool. Just kind of this picture of like Dash Wilder floating like a god up to the ceiling, throwing rocks down at all these Minotaurs. Somehow not dying, just falling unconscious as he falls from the height there. It was pretty dope. So that's definitely a pretty memorable moment.
Yeah, I like that moment too. It's probably one of my. I think as a player, I felt like I was the most experienced at the time, and I felt like if anybody like was going to bite it, it should be me. And I tell you what, I was very flattered for one because all those motherfuckers like they realized what they did, and then they're like, "We're not gonna let him die." They're
Yeah,
like, it was like unanimous. They're like, "No, he's not gonna die," and everybody just got their shit together, stirred it up real quick. So yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite moments too. Honestly, I just sometimes I forget about it because then when I look back at it, I was like, "Oh shit, I broke the rules," but it wasn't intentional. It was just didn't read the spell correctly. But yeah,
yeah.
I'll
No,
give you one.
it was pretty dope.
I'll give you one as a player
Okay.
because this was during your city campaign, and I really this taught me. This was after my character got beheaded by a barbarian, which that kind of sucked. But hey, I made a paladin, and to this day, still one of my favorite characters, and I bring him up as an NPC. But Gareth Cathaway turned to like we were trying to figure out what kind of character I was wanting to play, and we're like, why don't we try Oath of Conquest? That's different. I'm like, sure, why not? Let's give it a whirl. And I picked the god that one of our other friends, she worshipped because she was an NPC in this. I can't even remember the guy's name. Freaking
Killumbor.
Kellenborg. He says I'm quiet.
Yeah, you're whatever you did to your mic that made it pop or whatever, it's been kind of messed up ever since.
What about now?
Oh, that is 1,000 times better. I
That's
think
weird.
something was loose.
I must have a loose
Yeah,
connection in one of these
that's
wires. So,
much better. Now you actually sound like you're talking into a microphone instead of a potato.
oh well, I did not know that. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I picked that god because she worshipped that god. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna tie it in with this character. She's a godmother. Great. Um, and I did have some struggles with the character first because couldn't hit nothing with this great sword. So that was frustrating. And that's when I learned low level paladin can be very frustrating. But we had this adventure arc where we had to go to hell. And basically Billy's god, which was Bahamut at the time, which is now in John's world, Zergos, had a ghostly image to help us. Where what's his nuts did basically his cleric went in, that's it. Well, long story short, she sacrifices herself so all of us can get out. So that, like in my backstory, and as I like to act, this was a big deal. So I'm invested.
Mhm.
I am fully invested in this role. I am fully invested in this character. I realize she's dead. I try to go back in. I can't get back in. I immediately take my great sword. I shatter it on the wall and I walk out. And that was the moment that Gareth broke his oath. And that was such a cool thing to do because I got to feel that emotion. I got to feel that anger of seeing another god directly intervene for his stupid ass servant. Let's be honest. That character was stupider than the day is long, but this beloved, adventurous woman who has done so much good in the world couldn't, just left to die. He couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. So I broke my oath and I went full on Sith Lord. So for me, that was cool. Now, I went lawful evil, but I told myself the only reason why I went lawful evil is because I was reading the DMs in the DMs guide that oath breakers are evil. So that's why I chose it. But I told myself I would never turn on my party, that I would protect them always, like, because I failed to protect her. So I gave up great weapon fighting. I picked up the long sword and the shield, and I that character did everything he could from that point forward to say, "No more gods. This is my own power. I'm creating this. I don't need you." The only mistake I made was I went with that angel to meet said god, and he killed me. That was not good. But because of that though, he got brought back basically alive. I don't know what he was, to be honest. He was in another vessel, and given the power,
It's sort of immortal, yeah.
right, he's sort of immortal. And because of that though, like that particular campaign, that particular campaign he didn't get closure, but I have been able to bring that character into other campaigns. I have made him an NPC, and I was able to like show his Darth Vaderness to other people. And he's still out there. He still hasn't done what he said he was going to do. He was going to kill Kellamvor. But as I think Tracy and I discussed it one night, that at this point it's been so long that if that Gareth knows now that if he kills Kellamvor, he has to take his place. He has to become that which he hates. So that is
I like it.
the ironic spin to that character. And that character happened because I got killed. So
Yeah,
that
I
was a really cool story for me to tell.
I like that. I think it's a great example of, and I think this happens more often than not with characters, or at least good characters, as a example of a character who had something going on when you made him, but like through the campaign, he really became his character. Like you
Right.
found out who the character was as you played him, which I think is pretty normal for of again of at least good characters, right? Like, for instance, I knew an idea of who Rupert was when I made him, but I
Right.
learned who he was through playing him. Like I learned how
Right.
much he craved power by playing. Like I said he craved power, but I learned just how much through playing him. You know, you knew Gareth had passion, but you learned just how much through playing him and where that passion took him. I think that's a really cool example of that. I also really think, a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, I just want to be Oathbreaker because they get like cool abilities and whatnot, and I like the flavor." And it's like, but it doesn't make any sense. Um,
Right.
Gareth was like the perfect opportunity for like, nope, this makes 100% sense story wise. Like this is exactly what a paladin breaking his oath looks like. And I think that
Right.
was really cool to be able to like play that. Yeah,
Right. To watch, and even in further sessions to like explain the process. The first one was shattering the sword. The next one was watching that devotional tattoo like scar and burn over,
right.
and him just endure it quietly, and then start writing a book about, how to create your own power. It was an interesting story and an interesting character, because I think most people see me play these light-hearted characters because what
Mm-hmm.
I just they're
Oh, you
me
like to joke
basically.
around and have a good time. Yeah.
Right. But occasionally I really love some deep broody type characters. I mean, I
Right.
think Dalton was one to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed that character. He wasn't as happy go lucky as some of my other characters.
Yeah.
And now in your game, I'm playing a happy-go-lucky, goofy character who just so happens to run after dinosaurs and tell dragons how much they suck, and realizing he can't hurt them because it's a fire spell, and go, well, fuck it,
Right. Right.
So there's an art. Sometimes I tell people all the time, especially on my channel, I love DMing, but sometimes I forget how much I enjoy being a player, because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
they ask me what do I like more, and I was like DMing, because I feel like I have more control. But then the other night, I had an idea for a character, and I was like, I would want to play this character because it's based off of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is one of my favorite stories of all time. And I was like, I could make this character with one eye, like an eye patch, and he'd be like Shahudun. And you have this giant curved greatsword. And then I wouldn't have to wear armor because I just wear these nice regal looking clothes of a former
Yeah, your
soldier.
barbarian build
It'd
you're
be a
thinking
cool
of.
story to tell. Yeah. Oh hell yeah. Oh
Yeah,
god, I'm going barb. Yeah.
yeah,
If anything, I would go 5 levels barb and everything else fighter.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's cool too because Gareth also gives you it gives you a really cool, well, I guess me too, a really cool NPC. Just this guy, because we
Right.
like how we met him in your last campaign, just floating through the astral sea, slaying gods. Like, it's pretty dope.
Yeah, he's just there.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then like how he like because like and it also tried to do a job of explaining like his form. Like it's kind of spiritual. It's there,
right,
but
right,
he can create flesh and take a form to be an avatar and go
right.
from there, which was kind of cool.
Yeah,
And it gave you guys an extra set of hands. Like at the end of the day, I don't think it was necessary, but when I DM, sometimes I'd rather be safe than sorry, and I gave you
right.
guys this extra set of meat. But we had a dragon. We had we had all sorts of things.
Kind of all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah,
It was fun though. I mean, it was fun, and I'll get more into that. But I just wanted to go into that as a player. I'd
mm.
say honestly, as a player, I think that is my favorite moment. To be honest, I know I'm probably out of order, but that just came to mind when you were talking about Dash because like my favorite character moment, my favorite I'm an
Yeah,
actor moment was being able to shatter this sword and tell this really cool story. Even though it didn't last very long, I got to fully like just emotionally invest in this angry person because this anger is still part of me as a person. I got to express that in a healthy, controlled environment.
right.
And I didn't go psycho on somebody, but it was just a cool story to tell. So thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that opportunity.
I'll go to my number three, I guess. My number three, again, this is, player in my game. This is the one that does not, well, no, I don't think it involves Steve in any way, actually. So this is, before the party went into the Underdark, same campaign. They were in the dwarven city of Corridor. The city of Corridor is inside of a mountain, and then they've got a mine, the Corridor mines, which then lead into the Underdark. So it's all kind of connected there, right? And the
Right.
party's kind of trying to figure out what's going on. They've been hearing this word Crevathan. They've been hearing things about Duragar kind of coming up to the city. Not quite sure what's going on. Just trying to collect some clues and some ideas of what's going on, but at the same time, like, this is the first time they've been in this dwarven city, and they're just kind of doing things. I think Steve was playing Dash, and I think Dash had
Yeah.
just like really enjoyed hanging out with the dwarves and was performing in in one of the taverns and was trying to keep up with the dwarves, in the alcohol consumption. And I'm pretty sure he spent most of this part of the session anyway, like puking in an alley. But some
Pretty
other
much.
the party kind of splits up and does a few different things because they're in a city. They're fine. The cleric and one other person decide to go to the big temple. The temple to at this point I hadn't started making my own gods, so the temple to Moradin in the city. And my brother Grady, he's playing Nakus, who's a rogue and is. In kind of their exploration of the city, they found one shop that was like, it was interesting. It looked like it was made for like sneaky characters. It had, hand crossbows and smoke bombs and poison darts and that sort of thing, which he thought was pretty interesting. So he went into the store and tried to buy something and was told it was outrageously expensive. Um, and then the store owner said something to him in thieves' cant. I can't remember exactly what, but some sort of like challenge code, basically.
Right.
And Nakus, knowing thieves' cant, kind of figured out how to reply. And the guy just kind of nodded his head, opened up a door, and kind of beckoned to Nakus through the door or whatever. And
Right.
Nakus is like, okay, let's see where this goes. He takes him to like this basement, opens that up, and lets him on through. And Nakus just kind of like sits down in a row of pews and whatnot, as like everyone in here is clearly like in a cult. Um, and up in the front there, they're like, "Oh, brother so and so from the Underdark is actually here
Right.
to give us Crevathan's word, as he's been like,
Oh
closer
shit.
to Crevathan, living in the Underdark and whatnot." And Grady's just like, "What's happening?" And kind of finding out kind of more of what's going on, of how Crevathan is some sort of deity to the Duragar. And they've kind of been spreading that message up into the dwarves of Corridor as well, and some of them have kind of like started to follow there. And
Right.
as the kind of like meeting goes on, the actual Duragar is saying something along the lines of like, brothers, like, let's celebrate. Today we're gonna blow up the temple. The agents are already on their way to like kill everyone inside. And Nakis is sitting
Wonderful.
there listening to this as like two party members are on their way to the temple. Um, and it was a really fun situation of, first of all, not only like we all talk about it as that time that Nakis joined a cult,
Right.
because there was that, and that was hilarious, but then there was also just kind of the mad dash of like, we're all split up. Two of us are about to walk into an ambush that they are nowhere near prepared for. Nakis is the only one who has this information and doesn't know where Dash or like half of the other party members are. He's just kind of running through the city, trying to grab everyone together, trying to get to the
Right.
temple before two party members die because they aren't prepared for what's inside. I thought it was a lot of fun. Like it was all stuff that I had pre-written, and I really love how it all came together, because I expected, the party to just kind of like maybe investigate some of this stuff, maybe not. If they go to certain areas, they kind of uncover certain things. But the way that like everyone went to one of the different key areas at the same time, um,
Right.
just kind of made it like this ticking clock that was fantastic. I loved it.
I think we titled that episode "Naked Joins a Cold."
Yeah, I mean that's how we
I'm
talk about it
almost
anyway.
certain.
Yeah.
Right. It's like anytime it comes up, it's like, well, remember that time Nakis or Grady joined a cult?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
kind of did it again, like in the reboot too. I don't want to fucking A.
Yeah, he's kind of, I think there have been like two or three other
Cult
times,
magnet.
honestly, where he's infiltrated. But I mean, he's the rogue, like it makes sense. He's the
He's the
one, like if
rogue.
someone's going to
Right.
infiltrate a secret meeting, right, that it would be him. But like he did a really good job of playing along, of like, okay, this is happening.
All right.
Okay, this is
Okay.
happening.
Right.
It's funny
I
too
got a
because he's an
funny.
elf.
I got a funny one for you.
All right,
And
go.
this is the story of perseverance. This is during redemption, actually. You guys were with the elves. You guys in the elven city. I can't even remember what level you were, to be honest. Probably 12, 13. Fuck, who knows? Because we started that campaign at level 11, which also showed me just how, like, the challenge and the fun of running, epic level campaigns. Because we
Hmm.
started that off, it was something unique and different. We started it at level 11. Basically, the characters were all, dead, and they before they died or after they died, I challenged the players to tell me how they died. And at the beginning of the session, we went through that. John's character was a little different. Instead of being dead, he was the first of his kind. Interesting. It's a challenge with that character because the character had mounts, and also the challenge of that mount was not being able to hit it, and the challenge of everything. And they finally, I think during the second arc, they go to the Elven City. John had a little too much to drink that night,
I don't
and
think that's true.
Koa's got the clip, and it was fucking hilarious. And I think he badgered me to the point. He's like, I I just want some magical plate armor. And I'm like, fine, fuck it. And then I find magical plate armor. And like I think he asked me like 20 or 30 times that night, I want some magical plate armor. And he was like, listen, I'm not gonna fuck you, but I just want some magical plate armor. So for me, it was hilarious because I'm like, okay. Because I'm like, for me, it was like this player really A needs this item, and two really wants this item. Now, if you really think about it from a story perspective, the elves in my homebrew world there in the realms, they had armor, but I wouldn't say they were like master armor smiths. I mean, they could
Right.
do like the mithril stuff, the chain stuff, the stuff that's really light and durable for like agile characters. But we craft a set of magical plate armor because I do believe at the time somehow Tracy surpassed you in AC and you just weren't having it.
Yeah, no, that was not okay.
And it was just funny. Like for me, like I said in the beginning, like memorable moments for me is like if they make me laugh, it's a teachable moment for me as well. That if my player really needs this item, I'm going to get it to him somehow, and that's what we did. He paid for it. It was a fun character, and it really helped out their party. So for me, that was memorable because I was able to get that character what they
Well, and
needed,
there was
and it was just
there
funny.
were honestly sessions of, do you
Oh
have
yeah,
any magical
have
plate
a magical
armor?
plate armor. I
Well,
should have prefaced that it probably wasn't all one session, but it
to be
felt like it.
to be honest though, like it was like, I mean, I already had plate armor and I had a magic shield, so like,
Right.
and I had a magic sword and like crazy
And a dragon lance.
good weapons. So like anytime it was like, okay, do you want to get anything or whatnot? It's like, the only thing that I want is more AC, and the only way to get that is magic plate armor. So
Right.
it just kind of, it became a meme. Do you have any magical plate
Do you have any
armor?
magical plate armor? I think when we went to actually I think when we like when Adrian and I went to Comic Con, or not Comic Con, but Gen Con that year, he
Joy-Con?
got this
Yeah.
plushy dragon, and we sent John a picture because he named it Markle, and I think something along the lines like, "Do you have any magical plate armor?" It was just, I thought it was hilarious, and it was just
Fantastic.
funny.
All right, I'm glad Markle got in there. Magical plate armor.
You got any
Uh,
magical plate armor?
that brings me to my number two then. Um, it's really interesting. So the three middle ones are all from I'm a DM, my players did this. They're also all from the same campaign, and not just the same campaign, but the same story arc. Um,
Right.
which means number two is the so the party have kind of learned about Crevathan, some sort of like deity to the Duragar. They've ventured into the Underdark, and they know they're gonna try and like question the Duragar and figure out who this is and what to do. Um, and after some time, maybe a couple of random encounters, I don't remember, they end up coming to this large chamber full of like there was a big old Duragar camp. There were like 12 Duragar there or something like that. I can't remember, but it was a good number. It was a large party, so they can handle their own. But there were also a lot of enemies, and the party was luckily able to kind of sneak around and survey, figure out where they were before anything happened. They weren't noticed and were able to scout ahead, and started coming up with some plans of kind of how to deal with this. Do we just kind of go in? What do we do? Kind of taking a look at spells of kind of like some ways to handle this. Um, and this is a time when Dash just kind of looks through his spells and says, "Well, I think it was Major Image. I can, you
Yeah.
can create an illusion of some sort of creature, uh, and I can create an illusory creature maybe on the other side of them. It'll draw their fire. They're all like attack them, and it'll probably only last a round or so before they realize that it's fake. But that'll give us like the advantage, and we can get a whole extra round in attacking from the other direction or kind of whatever." And the party's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. Best idea we've got so far." And it's like, okay, so what should we do? We should do, maybe like a dragon or something. That would probably make a lot of sense. And like that's what they're talking, right? They're thinking dragon. They're in the Underdark, so like I don't know, maybe like a mind flayer or something, or very some scary creatures and whatnot, things that would definitely draw their attack. And I think they had settled on something. They had settled on like a dragon or
Beholder.
something. No, before that,
No,
they had settled
before
on
that.
like
Okay.
a dragon or something like that. Um, and they were about to do it. Steve was about to have Dash cast the spell. Everything was going, and then I don't remember who it was, but someone goes, "Wait! What about a beholder?" And everyone's like, oh, that could be fun. Yeah, why not? Like, it doesn't matter at this point. Like, whatever the thing is, it's obviously going to accomplish what they're trying to do, right? But at the last minute, Beholder gets thrown out, and they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. Tracy recommended Beholder. So, like, sure, why not? And he cast a major image of a Beholder
A
and
mustache.
with a mustache. And as soon
Yeah.
as the beholder appeared behind the Durgar, they all turned around, dropped their weapons, bowed, and just started chanting out, Crevathan, how can we serve you? As the party had no idea, but their god, their deity that they worshipped, Crevathan, was indeed a beholder. That was this whole arc. There were not a lot of clues to that yet, and the party
No.
had no idea whatsoever, but they just randomly chose Beholder, and that just so happened to be what these guys worshipped. So when the image of this creature appeared, they thought it was him. Which was so epic, the party was able to pretty easily wipe the Duragar because they were all weaponless, bowing down to their god as they were slaughtered. That is probably my favorite thing that my players have ever done. It was sort of done on accident, but it
It was
was
completely
absolutely amazing.
accidental.
Yeah.
Complete, because after we figured out, we're like, wait, what? And we're like, oh
Yeah.
shit, what are the
I think that's
odds?
I think
Like,
that's
literally.
exactly how we ended the session too, with just they all bow down and start praising
Right.
Crevathan. And we'll pick up next time.
And we'll do. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the panic when you're like, oh god, this happened. Okay, well, I think
It was pretty dope.
there's so many moments, man. It's hard to remember them all, but I think my favorite, and I always go back to my first campaign because it was my
Mm.
first love. It was literally a labor of love. Now
Yeah.
that I'm running it again, I realize how combat heavy it is, but fortunately those players do like that. But I remember this moment, and this was like, cuz I did all this planning for all these other continents, for other stories to happen, okay? And it was underneath this dwarven city that you guys went into this dungeon, and you had to, I can't even remember what you had to do. You had to do something. But Vac was there, and that was when you guys had figured, you'd known who he was. You knew who he was.
Yeah.
And he gave all the players a choice. And he says, there's more than one way to do this, basically. But that he goes, if you want to end this, and you want to do it as quickly as possible, I can assist you. And he pulls out his spear. He basically says, you have to die to get to where you're going. And your character walks right up to him, takes his hand with the spear, and shoves it into his chest. And for me as a DM, I'm like, first of all, wasn't thinking that was going to happen, because most players don't want to lose their characters that they've spent, at that point in time, what, maybe 13 levels doing. And eventually everybody followed suit. So as a DM, I had to react very quickly because it wasn't something that I expected. I basically encased all your bodies in this crystal to preserve them. I took your guys' spirits, and we had this epic journey into Valhalla, basically, and we power leveled you guys. And like we had these pictures set up just for like in music, just to kind of like show things that were going on. You were leaving the earth, and you guys were making that ultimate heroic sacrifice, because if you guys didn't, the world was going to end in another Ragnarok. And for me as a DM, and the reason why I love it so much is because I think most people know by now, when it comes to my storytelling, is I love heroes. I love I love people who are willing to make those sacrifices and know that they're not always going to come out unscathed, that sometimes sacrifice is needed. And your guys' characters, and yours first, made that decision. And to reward you, I leveled you guys all the way to 16 to put you on par for those final battles. And at the end of that campaign, I gave you guys a choice, and you guys decided to become deities. And for me, I guess it's tying it all up into that moment, just, rushing through it. But I'll never forget that, because at the end of my first campaign, I just felt so satisfied and so very blessed that I had the players that I did. Like I tell people all the time, and I don't think they understand it, but my players, to me, I am extremely blessed as an individual. Not only are you my friends, but I and sometimes I even talk to you guys for ideas because I get stumped. But you guys help me tell these amazing heroic stories, and sometimes not so heroic. Sometimes they get a little dark. But you guys help me tell these amazing stories, and I'll said it once, and I'll say it again. To me, in this world, there's nothing greater than sitting down with your friends telling stories. And that's why that particular moment is probably my favorite because it made me realize just how much I love telling stories. So that's mine.
Hold on. Uh, that's good. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that. I mean, I think it was a no brainer for Titus to kind of make that choice.
Right.
In my mind, but uh,
Right.
nice. That was awfully nice and touching and sentimental. And now we head to my number one, which is not any of those things.
I got serious.
Yeah. I appreciate it. It's actually really interesting. So this is my number one favorite D&D moment, for sure. And it happened in a kind of mini campaign before I was playing with any of the people that I play with on this channel.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Steve wasn't a part of this. No one was a part of this.
Nope.
It was, I'd gotten into D&D probably about a year and a half or so, probably, before I actually started running the first home game, and then a few months later started this whole Twitch thing and whatnot.
Right.
And I had no one really to play with, so I just kind of looked for a group on the Roll20 message boards and whatnot. Most of the time, that's a recipe for disaster. Those groups don't last. We got lucky. We got a group that actually really enjoyed playing together. The DM was a little iffy. Like, he actually did okay, but was really kind of spotty on actually showing up. And eventually, after not quite a year, quit on us. He was like, I think the story's been told anyway. And it's like, well, sure, I guess. But, like,
Right.
you literally left the last session on a cliffhanger, so, like, I don't really
Right.
understand, but okay. Um,
Right.
so anyway, that's neither here nor there. So, but that group still kind of wanted to stick together. So while we were looking for a new DM, one of the other guys decided he'll just go ahead and run like a mini campaign in the meantime, and we played a few sessions of that. A lot of fun. I played a wood elf monk who was we. It was kind of a it was a ocean based campaign, so we were given like a wide open map of this is probably part of why I like the idea of like a hex crawl. It really
Right.
appeals to me, is like it was just a really cool idea of like it's um just a wide open map. There's just
Wide
like
open.
islands here and there, whatever, do a thing. It was fun. And my character had a sailor background and everything, and had been on a pirate ship before, so he just kind of became the captain of this ship. The party kind of like voted that he would be the ship's captain. It just made sense. We had decided we were going to be not pirates necessarily, but also like we were going to be like just more privateers. Whatever job comes along, we're going to do it, and we're also
Right.
not too morally outraged by what that job is. After all, our captain formerly like pillaged and murdered, so
Right.
um, we end up at this one like Port Town or whatever. We picked up a job or whatever, and then as low level D&D players do, or characters do, we were like third level for whatever reason, especially at low level, but even at higher level. You go to the inn and they say it's gonna be 5 silver to rent a room. I have it, but I could just stay on my boat for free. So that's what the party does. They're like, no, screw you in person. We're just gonna go stay on our boat for free instead. So that's what we did. It's like, yeah, sure, that's realistic. The character probably doesn't want to spend any more time in that rank boat, but that's fine. So we did that. We sailed away from this port, and we're like, well, what are we gonna do out here? We saw a merchant ship leave port, and I'm like, let's follow it. So we follow the
How
merchant ship.
every bad decision starts. Let's just do it.
We follow the merchant ship. One of the guys kind of like scouts out what their defenses are and whatnot, and I'm like, "All right, are we out of sight of the port? Yeah. All right, fire!" So we fire on the merchant ship. We end up getting right alongside them. We board the ship. We kill everyone on board. And we're looking around, and we're just like, we pillage. We take, like, we're just full on piracy at this point. We take whatever we want from the ship, any like riches that we get, which isn't a ton, but it's something. Take that back to our ship. And I was like, this was fun. One of the other guys, though, during the fight, he was a wizard, and he had cast Flaming Sphere on the deck of this other ship. So the ship is, like, the fire isn't out of control yet. We could have put it out, but the ship is partially on fire. So what we decide to do instead is take a few of the dead bodies anyway, tie them tie one to the wheel and whatnot, and a few others like as if they're controlling the ship still. Turn the ship around and ram it and like set it on a course back into the port, and then we got back on our ship. And we watched and followed as this flaming ship just slowly rammed itself into the port. And now the ship's on fire, the port's on fire, the town is going crazy trying to do something about this. We pull up behind it and start casting spells like shape water and whatnot, put out the fire, and we like rescue civilians, and at the end of it all end up being like declared like heroes of the town for having saved the town from the fiery ship that smashed into the port. And that right there was kind of a moment where I was just like, you really can do anything, can't you?
You really can do anything.
And I remember that was also...
really enjoyed that.
That was also the guy who was DMing, that was also the session where he was just like, okay. After that had all happened, he was like, okay. So what are your guys' alignments? Because I gotta tell you, this is definitely a point towards evil.
Right.
I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I enjoy that because that's actually pretty damn funny. Because, like, I don't know, if you guys did that in one of my games, I'd be like,
right.
Really? Yep. You're really gonna do that? Okay.
All
right, let's see where this rabbit hole goes. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. It was pretty nuts. So that's my number one. So there you have it. That's our both of our top fives. I mean, we probably have a ton of honorable mentions. I know.
Oh God, there's so many. I can't even.
Flying out like ones I can think of, me flying around as Rupert, just like cackling as I'm throwing fire at an assassin who was sent to kill me.
Attaching Mjolnir to Billy's character and then throwing the hammer and dragging him across town.
Yeah, that was pretty good. He deserved that. Me and Grady going back and forth.
Growing a tree in your parents' house.
That was a lot of fun because Grady was able to keep up with me creatively with what he was doing. Because I was expecting just to like throw the hammer on him and have it be done, but he then had an idea, and then I had an idea, and that was a lot of fun. I think me fighting Grady with as Xander and him being Hocus. That fight was a lot of fun. Plus then saving Hocus's soul was a lot of fun. The boss fight in my first campaign where, it was basically me and you going toe to toe with the spells.
I forgot. Oh God, that was so tense.
Darren Garvia, yeah. So I think there's a lot of honorable mentions. But those are probably the top five anyway.
Yeah, so, I like them.
With that, though, we're out of time for the day. We're actually a little bit over, which is fine, but we'll go ahead and just kind of move along and be done here. We have... Oh, hey, Steve, you're aware that we are playing this Sunday, right?
Yes, I
Okay,
saw it,
good.
and I hit the froyo emoji
I haven't
because
checked on it. I was just making sure
I
because I
did
know that you
almost
also have
forgot.
your game. I know that you also have your game, and I don't.
Oh
I'm
shit!
just yeah.
Well, it won't be till later.
Yeah, no,
Oh, that's
they
gonna be
won't
such a long
they
day.
won't overlap. I just hope you're mentally prepared for it
Oh
is
my
all.
god.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Shit, I didn't even think about that. Okay, well.
speaking of that, though,
Oh well.
we will be back here on this channel, the Fly Captain channel, on Sunday at about noon
Yes.
Eastern time for a little bonus weekend D&D episode of the Wine Women Adventure Tour. Since that's the home game, but we are kind of doing it remote right now because COVID is really annoying and won't
COVID's a
just
bitch.
die. That should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll see. And then after that, it looks like Steve over at Steve-O the DMO, he should have, I think it'll be session 3 of Midgard, actually.
Yeah, they're already level 3 too. Oh my god.
Nice. Pretty dope. So I know he runs games and does different stuff over there. Might have other streaming throughout the week. You never know. Sometimes he likes
Yep.
to stream his
Probably
prep.
gonna play some Destiny after I'm done here.
There you go. And then next Tuesday we will be back here on this channel. Normally would be the Eberron game. My goodness, my world name. But
They are slightly
it's gonna be our first scheduled one shot with Koa taking the reins of the DM slot. So we'll see how that goes. Should be a lot of fun. It's gonna be like a Hawaiian themed game, so that should be cool.
Yeah, man. Give
Um,
that kid a chance.
and then of course back here on Wednesday. So next Wednesday we will be at a new time, starting at 7:30, moving forward instead of 6:30, because somebody is working a little later, which is cool.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but you know.
But yeah, that should be that. Without further ado, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Again, if you haven't followed or whatever, follow us on Twitch. Hit the Discord button. Join that. You can leave questions for next time. All that good stuff. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Adios.
Right on.